audience possible. Go ahead and record the call as well. And let's make sure that we are live on Facebook and we'll get started with our introduction. We'll do, as always, a short grounding meditation just to help us arrive and be fully present for what promises to be a really good call. Who doesn't want to have a prosperous 2025? And we are here with someone that is the prosperity queen. She is the ritual queen. She can make anybody successful, and it's really intuitive what she's bringing to the table. So excited to hear from her. So welcome everybody in Facebook world. Welcome everybody here that's joining us live on Zoom. So happy to have you guys here. How awesome it is that you're buying this time out for yourself. What a luxury, right? Instead of running in the hamster wheel of life, doing the same thing over and over again, we're creating disruption to create change, to create transformation. And that's really what this space is for, to create awareness. And because a lot of times we get into tunnel vision. And so this is a space where we have different guest speakers shed some light, turn on the flashlight for things, perspectives that maybe we haven't even considered, or we thought, wait, that's not for me. But I know for me, this is what created change in me, by listening to different people with different perspectives and really seeing what works for me, what is empowering. And so how truly lucky are we to have Camille Craft with us today? But before we get started on introduction, I'd like to invite everybody to close your eyes. Obviously, if you're driving, you're not in a safe space, do not close your eyes. But if you're in a safe space, I invite you to close your eyes for a second. Then take a deep breath with me and hold it. Now embrace yourself, hug yourself, and release the breath. And say, I love me, I love you. Now I invite you to take another deep breath and hold it. Release the breath and say, I'm doing the best I can. So is everyone else. And that's okay. Now I invite you to take one last deep breath with me and hold it. Release the breath and say, I accept me. I accept you. I accept everyone. And I invite you to open your eyes and arrive here as as you are. Hold on, looks like I have a little bit of a technical difficulty. My computer is running out of battery, so there we go. Is there another plug? Hold on a second. Before I disappear on you guys, let me make sure I don't. I'm running off location here, so excuse me. Let's see here. There we go. There is juice. There's power. Okay, great. So, welcome everyone to the latest edition of Healing Conversations. Today we have Camille Craft. Camille Craft is going to be talking to us about creating your wealthiest year yet with ritual in 2025. A little bit about Camille. Camille is an astrologer, a witch, a business coach, and spiritual mentor. She's weaving subconscious reprogramming, nervous system integration, and repatterning of beliefs and experience. She helps her clients remember who they are, what they are here for, and gives them the tools to turn their purpose into powerful platforms for worldly change, transformation, and healing. Camille has created a growing online audience of over 143,000 people, has taught over 7,000 students from around the world, and teaches her clients how to weave wealth, self-worth, and astrology-based ritual to create their most successful and powerful lives. So lucky to have Camille. So many aspects here, and we're so excited to hear. How does this all work? Camille, you're still on mute. Oh, it says, okay,
Should
Josh,
be
it
able
says that
to unmute now, Camille.
that's to unmute. Okay, you should be good. There you are. Okay.
Okay, awesome.
Sorry.
No, no, it's all good. It's all, yeah, Mercury retrograde, all the fun things.
Right, right.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me. And yeah, I'm really, really excited to have this conversation. I know we talked about a few different topics, but as you introduced me, obviously my name is Camille. I'm the owner and creator of a platform called Vital Mystic, and I kind of stumbled on this path accidentally. That's usually how the best things happen. And if you would have told me 2 years ago, or even 4 years ago, or 6 years ago, when I started to become an entrepreneur, and told me I was going to be teaching business or money or any of those things with astrology, I would have told you that you're totally nuts. I will never be teaching that. But I find that with everything with life, you always end up very unexpected places, but definitely the best. So as we come into, the end of this year, I really wanted to talk about a subject which is kind of like near and dear to me. And what I've been hearing is that a lot of people have had very intense years. There's been a lot of just transformation, a lot of different unexpected things. And I'm just going to give kind of a backstory of how I initiated with ritual, how I landed up in this place, and why ultimately now I'm teaching about wealth and energetics, and then how to use ritual in the coming year for you to create your most prosperous year. And so before I begin that story, I want you to just think about what wealth means to you, right? What does wealth mean to you? It could have so many different definitions, and whatever the definition is for you, wealth or success, I want you to frame that now, because ultimately what that means for us, it could be, for me, it's like a wealth of freedom, right? My ability to move, have an idea, to create something, to jump on a plane, whatever that is. And it's that level of freedom. And so when we think about wealth, framing that for yourself is going to be the intentional space that we want to kind of step into, especially when we're looking at what does this next year hold for me? And in astrology, we don't actually start the new year until the spring equinox. So we've got a little bit more time, and I'll give a little bit more insight as well. But we are coming up, I mean, today is a 12/12. It's a portal in numerology, and then also in the coming days, we also have solstice. So when we come into this, go ahead and think about, and as I'm talking about, how I wound up here, I encourage you to start defining what wealth means to you, and what it would mean to create wealth. It could mean money, it could mean time, it could mean relationships, it could mean quality of life, it could mean connection, it could mean so many different things. And as we do that, and as anything with ritual, some of the key ingredients that we have with ritual is our intention, the timing that we do it under, and then the physical correspondence that we anchor that with, right? And then, of course, our actions following that space of intention. So a little bit of background about me. I was born and raised in California, and I was born into a very traditional family, except for a grandmother who was a very rainbow sheep, as you call it. she was an astrologer and she lived in Marin in the 70s, and she drove a gold bug. And so I would spend time in her artist studio just kind of watching her paint. And she taught me a little bit about astrology, and it kind of just opened up this like world for me where my rest of my family was very, very traditional and had a military background and so forth. So this was like very different. And so when I was younger, I really got into understanding different transits and kind of learning a little bit about myself, always having that, kind of like seeker energy, like, why am I here? What am I doing here? Even from a super young age. And I just always came in with these two, like, I don't know if anyone's felt this, but like just a deep knowing that you were like wrote this life before and that you were here to help people. And I've known this since I was very, very, very little. So fast forward to, high school and stuff like that. And I would do little rituals and, before I even really actually knew what I was doing, but my grandmother ended up passing away when I was pretty young. So I moved through. And so I was about 23 when my younger brother was tragically murdered. And that ultimately, I was like on this path to become a doctor. And this entire experience, like, totally rippled my entire reality. And so at 23, I was navigating what normal 23-year-olds were navigating. And that the moment that I received the message that he had passed, was I kept hearing that message again, which was, you wrote this before, this was meant to happen, and this is part of your path. So that's actually when I was on this trajectory to become a Western doctor, Western medicine doctor and so forth, that's actually where I started to shift a lot. And I started to go just deep into the spiritual realms, deep into energetics, deep into kind of trying to understand and make sense of a world where that could happen to somebody that was just one of the kindest people that I knew. And so that's actually where ritual started again for me. And it came from me actually using all the flowers that we got from his funeral, and creating little altars and creating ways or like little mandalas that would help me move through the different grief. And he had a bunch of friends. And so we lived in a very small kind of town in Northern California. And so just droves of people came out because they heard the news, and we would have these big gatherings, at his year anniversary and so forth. And our home was like the home where like all the kids from like the broken families gathered for years, right? And so it was these droves of people and all these people coming out and pouring out in love. And we would have 30 to 40 to 50 people building these massive altars. And so that was actually a huge piece for me when I was moving through such a deep amount of grief, a deep amount of loss, and a deep amount of darkness, where ritual came in and it really sparked this essence of family, this essence of connection, and this essence of remembering that we are actually not meant to be doing it alone. We're actually meant to be doing it with each other, right? And that's one of the biggest things for me, what wealth really means. Wealth really means for me just like this deep connection to understanding that you are not alone, that you are here in this space and time, that you uniquely have a sort of wisdom or energy or space along those lines that you are here ultimately to bring into form, however big or small. And so as I went through that time period and fast forward, I had quite a few different universal redirections, as we all do. And it led me to the path of just becoming an herbalist, where I originally started my first business. And then through that, I started to develop rituals that would support that business growth. And up until about 2022, I had a ritual product line, moving through astroherbalism, fusing astrology into physical products. And then I decided I was doing a lot of events, and it was just a lot of investment coming out of, pandemic vibes, not being able to do tons of events, having to mask up all the time. And I was like, there's got to be an easier way. And that's when I had a really bunk event And I got the guidance that that I was actually meant to be, you know, doing something more digital product based or teaching or all those things. And as a major introvert, I constantly struggled talking to people, right? That's a huge sales process. I was really, really shy, and it was really hard for me to open up. So once again, Ritual was there to like help me come into and facilitate that authentic being of who I was and what I came here to do and all of those things. And so over the last 2 years since following that intuitive nudge, I've created over $500,000 in revenue with $0 spent on ads. And now I spend my days coaching other spiritual based entrepreneurs how to use the conduit of their self-worth and the definition of what wealth means to them to really harness this deep trust and faith in yourself and your connection to the universe. Because a lot of times when we start on the journey, whether it's a personal journey of spiritual development, or whether we're doing it there from a space of service, or we're creating something, there's so many different things that can come up. We have imposter syndrome. We have all the different ways, like how, like, you know, all the fear, right? All our doubts and insecurities. How could I ever make a difference? Who's ever going to want to listen to me? All of these things start to pop up. And so one of the biggest things that I've noticed with ritual is that a lot of times, you know, a lot of us are familiar with new and full moon rituals. You know, maybe we sit down, we do them sporadically. But the biggest thing that I've noticed is that, you know, ritual is like tending a fire, and it's tending to your energetic being, your power, your essence, your gifts, your light. And the more that we can tend to that, the brighter it will shine. You know, not saying that the imposter syndrome and the fear is not going to be there, but what happens is that we end up start opening up different trajectories, different possibilities. Not only do we do that for ourselves, but we do that for our communities, and we can start to see that ripple out and create that impact and change as well, like a little vortex. Every one of us is like a little vortex, right? And we all have those different keys in astrology that are ultimately there to be unlocked. And so in astrology, we have something called shadow and light. Every single placement, every single sign, every single transit will have a shadow and light. It is our choice how we want to move with that. And it's our choice if we are going to be unconscious of it, like a puppet dancing on a string, like, I don't know what's happening, da da da, why are all these chaotic things happening? Or to be a master of it. And one of the biggest things that I really discovered in this process of, you know, fusing ritual and astrology, and this whole process of coming from some of the darkest moments in my life and having this practice bring me into the highest points of my life, is that really it comes down to choice of how we want to choose to dance with our power. And ritual is an intent, like it's an intentional space. It's saying, I'm going to sit down in this moment and I'm going to choose to believe and know that I'm a powerful creator. And therefore, I'm going to take some time, like we're doing right now, having this conversation, take some time out of this busy world, right, that has spun us out of that center, and remember who I am. And remember what my desires are, and remember what my dreams are. And that's, for me, what ritual really is. And so just like tending a fire, if we tend a fire, you know, a little bit, and then we walk away for a while, the fire is going to go out or dwindle. But if we create a significant practice, you know, we're checking back in with the fire, we're holding, that fire grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. And then all of a sudden people start coming over because they want to see what's happening over here, right? And then that fire that we tended is not just nurturing us, it is nurturing our entire community. It is nurturing people that we didn't even know that we were meant to impact. It is nurturing the world at large. And that's ultimately how I like always come back to, is like, this is how I've created my success. And monetary success is great, but honestly, what the gold for me is the person that I've become because of this process, or unveiled, if you want to say, and then also every single day of creating that life that I really truly feel I was born to live. And when we look at astrology, every part of your chart is a choice. It is a choice to either move into that essence of the shadow, move into the essence of, we're all going to have different challenges and ways to go about it. But there's also the other side too, which is we can actually harness the highest points of each one of these placements in our chart. And we're actually here to catalyze, and we're actually here to master. And there's certain keys in your chart that will really help you understand what you came here to accomplish, and also where your actual gifts are. I'm going to just tell them you can, go to your charts and look that up later on if you want. But some of the most important keys that I actually look at for people's charts when they're coming to me, wanting to know more about their purpose, wanting to know more about their success and how to create that, are three things that are not commonly mentioned. I've even had clients that come to me and they're like, I've had my chart read dozens of times and no one has ever brought up these points. And here is why. Most people focus on things that are sun, moon, rising, your actual place, those things. I'm going to tell you right now that as far as what you need to overcome and where your gifts are going to be where your greatest wounds are. They're going to be where your greatest fears are. They're going to be the ways that we brake pedal, the things that might have happened to us. And that's actually our biggest gift, right? Our ability to alchemize a wound. This is all also coming into alchemization, etc. But ultimately, the ability to alchemize something is turning it from lead into gold. And when we look at our greatest wounds, when we can be brave enough to move into those spaces and not come from a place of, well, this happened to me, so this is why I am the way that I am, but we actually get to retell a different story, and we say, this might have happened to me, but I'm going to create a bigger impact because I'm brave enough to heal that. And I also want to help others do the same. That's actually where the gold and the power actually lies. And that's actually how you create success. For me, what I think success is. So your Chiron placement, this is something that is not often talked about in astrology. We actually have a Chiron retrograde right now in Aries, which is about identity. So this is a huge piece as a collective that we are looking at right now. Your Chiron placement and the house that it's in is going to be the lesson that you always pull forward for you to heal. And the more that we can actually move and lean into that placement instead of backing away and saying, no way, I can't do that. That's actually where we develop our gold. That's actually where we channel the very gifts that we uniquely hold, because how you transform and work with that energy is actually how you unlock what your true essence really is. The second two things that I also like to point out, because I have tons of people that come to me and they ask, what is my purpose? What am I doing here, etc. That's a big question that a lot of people have, especially in the current world, and so forth. And the other things are North Node and South Node. And so North Node and South Node are actually not physical things in the sky. They are points at which the eclipses were occurring that you were born under. And so when we think about the energy of eclipses, they are major transformation portals. They are massive transformation portals. They open and close things, right? Big chapters, big lessons, things like that on a collective scale. And so your North Node and South Node are overall a trajectory. They call it in astrology the dragon's tail and the dragon's head. So think about the energy of a dragon, right? The dragon's tail and the dragon's head. It's like this is a PowerPoint in astrology. And it's really the trajectory of the choice of how you choose to lean into your power and the purpose and the things that you came here to master in this life. So the South Node, the dragon's tail, that is actually what you came in here already a master of. So again, you're going to want to look at South Node sign and the house placement. That is typically the personality that we lean on in our, in the beginning of our life. Maybe we have a few, in the first 20, 30 years by Saturn return, we've had a few lessons to come out of that personality. The second piece to this is North Node, the dragon's head, is actually where you want to lean in. And that's actually the opposite of what that South Node is in, and it's in this opposite house. So basically, you want to understand the archetype of that sign. And the more that you can master the energy of the archetype of that sign, the more that you are on point with your purpose, what you came here to accomplish in astrology. So how we weave these three things together. So I'm going to use myself as an example because sometimes it's just nice to hear. For me, for example, I have a Chiron and Gemini in the 5th house. Chiron and Geminis are frightened of what people think about them. Like literally spent all my life, not being the extrovert, being very introvert, trying to hide behind my products, trying to hide in all the ways. And what ultimately helped me come into the place of my success was actually scaling a platform and helping me face all the fears of what everybody says about or to me, right? Having a massive platform, there's all sorts of crazy stuff you have, So with that, I was able to master my ability to speak, my ability to share my story, my ability to share my perspective. And now it's created this entire dimensional platform where people are learning different ways of working with things. So when we can actually, in the past, I probably would have run away from public speaking. I would have run away from sharing my perspective. I would have run away from showing myself or my face on the internet. And I want to just hide behind, I just want to keep myself safe because I was so frightened of other people's opinions. And so, because obviously at that time it was like, okay, well, maybe the fear of bringing that opinion in and having it determine who I was. But in this lifetime, I was here to master that. So when we're looking at our Chirons, we want to see, okay, like what is the deep wound or fear, the thing that I'm running away from? And actually, how do I look at it and face that space? Because Chiron, like I said, it's the wounded healer, right? It is the wounded healer. It literally is this point, this asteroid in the sky. And the more that we can actually master it, the more that we're going to master our own healing capabilities and then being able to seed that for other people. Because one of the biggest things that I'm learning right now is that one, especially in our time, we need really strong community. Two, we need to see other people going out there and doing it, right? Going out there and having these conversations, going out there and putting themselves out there. And some people just have to go first. If you're like me and you got North Node in Aries, you're probably one of those people. We actually just are finishing a North Node, South Node kind of revisitation, but our North Node has been, in Aries and the South Node's been in Libra for the last like 2-ish years. It's about to move into Pisces and Virgo. But what that means is that for the last 2 years, as a collective, we've been asked to step up in our leadership roles. We've been asked to show who our true identity is. We've been asked to go first. And especially if this is your nodal return, you have been probably, initiated in more ways than one in the last 2 years to open up and see that internal instincts, that natural leadership capability. So a South Node in Libra actually means to release codependency, to release this essence or need to have to validate from others, to be able to step out from the crowd and to really allow yourself to, be seen. So if you think about it on a collective scale, there's been a lot of forward momentum, forward thinking, a lot of people needing to step up, different types of leaders, right? And so when we have this nodal shift in the beginning of 2025, we're going to have the North Node in Pisces and the South Node in Virgo. And so this is going to begin, I think it's about February. I forgot to write down the date. But that North Node in Pisces is about our spiritual gifts. It's about our spiritual abundance. It's about knowing that we are wealthy, regardless of the amount of money that is in our account, regardless of what the society tells us that we are capable of or not, and being able to reframe and coming back to that essence of, who is my eternal self? What is this, what are these essences or being, things that I am? What is this connection? There's also a piece here, because like I said, there's shadow and light with everything. A North Node in Pisces also brings awareness around mental health. It also brings awareness around our addictions, our behaviors, right? Because it's light and dark with each sign. And so for the next year, yes, we can reach high levels of spiritual abundance, whatever spiritual abundance means for you. But it can also bring this essence and reconciliation of what are the deeper shadows in my psyche that I actually need to heal, right? What are the deeper things that I have been running away from? What are the things that I have been wanting to bring forward? What are different addictions, watching movies on Netflix or whatever it is, like what are the ways that I'm avoiding myself? And so when we come into this next year, we want to be very clear with how and what we are creating with, right? What does spiritual abundance mean to you? What does overall abundance mean? Like not even like, even if we talked about wealth, is the first thing that we think of when wealth comes up is affluence or being able to do whatever, or like, what is that? Right. And for me, I think it's time to reframe, what wealth really means. Right. And it's like this essence of community, just exactly what we're doing right now, coming into this space where it's safe for people to share their different perspectives, their different stories, because each person has a unique experience and a unique background. And that's actually how we weave the tapestry of life, because every single person belongs. And so when we come into that space for this next 2.5-ish years, once those nodes shift, we actually come into this invitation. We come into the invitation to create connection. We come into the invitation to release our need to control. So that's South Node in Virgo. Release our need to be perfect. Release our need to have to know how it's going to work out. And coming into this space of flow. Another piece that really comes up during this time is, how much do you actually trust the universe? Can you be in a place where it's just so much craziness in the world and you still say, I'm still trusting. I still believe in some light. I still believe in communities. I still believe in the people that I'm surrounded with. I can still hold that light in the deepest, darkest depths of what is happening in my reality or the other people's reality. And I truly feel that it's like, this is our moment, right? This is our trajectory. We've all heard about it, Age of Aquarius, things like that. So as you come back to that, I want you to think about, because we're coming up to solstice at the time of this recording. And so solstice is a powerful turn of the wheel, right? It is a very powerful turn of the wheel. You get to set your trajectory for the next 6 months, right? And on solstice, we actually have a double, we have a moon in Virgo as well as the sun in Cap. So it's a double earth, right? So in astrology, when we are working with the elements, earth represents foundation. It represents money. It represents success. It represents our ability to create that foundation. So when we are thinking about, how do I want to create a foundation? What is it that I want to create a foundation for myself, but not just that, but the ripple effect it's going to have for the people around me. So I'll just share a little reflection. When I made that pivotal decision to go all in on digital products, I had no idea what I was doing. And 2 years later, I've created all this success. I have tons of people coming out of the woodwork like, how did you do it? You know what I mean? How did you do it? How did all these things? And so this is the essence of what I'm saying. Some of us just have to go first. Some of us have to just be brave enough to listen to that tiny voice within us. Some of us have to be dreamers. Some of us have to be visionaries. Some of us have to be able to take that action and have, like, there wasn't a single moment in my journey that I did not have fear, right? But fear is literally the mask that freedom wears before it's realized. And so when we can come into that essence and relationship with fear, when we can say, I know that something's going to be very successful because I'm more fearful to do it. I have more resistance to it. I'm like, no, I don't need to do that. I can do it a different day. I'll put it off, put it off, put it off, put it off, or whatever it is, right? Or I'll avoid it, right? But the moment that we can actually turn around and say, you know what? I'm just going to take that first step, that actually initiates a powerful journey. And at this point, while we're here, you always get to set the trajectory, right? You are a powerful creator. You get to set the trajectory of what you are available for. And that's where ritual work really comes in. So there's 3 pieces to a really powerful ritual, and I'm going to just talk about what that is. The first piece is obviously always your intention. Where your energy is, where you're focused. We know that from all sorts of different things, what you're working with, how you're activating your higher self, making sure we're not coming from, okay, I just want like this fancy car or boat or whatever, but we're really coming from that vertical plane. However you connect with that vertical plane or your eternal self or just the energy, true energy of love, whatever it is, we want to be clear with our intention. So as we come into solstice, what is your intention? What is your trajectory? What is the person in 6 months from now that you are, that what have they achieved? Not just for yourself, because I always invite my entrepreneurs and people to do this, but not just for yourself, but like what is happening in your community because you said yes, because you decided to take the steps, because that you really were able to transform that fear, right? What is the ripple out effect? And so as we know, Pluto just went into Aquarius. I'm sure you see it all over the internet. It's a 20-year cycle. That is a huge generational impact. And Aquarius rules our technology, but it also rules astrology, but it also rules visionary, right? And it's about being that visionary. It's about being able to see that vision and bringing it into form. You and I and all of us are conduits. And we are conduits based on our willingness to listen and to allow ourselves to move with action based on intention, right? That's how manifestation occurs. The second piece to a ritual is going to be your timing, right? And that's for astrology. And this is something that I teach a lot on my platform, a lot in my classes, is that when we are working with ritual, we want to be aware of the cycles around us, as above, so below, as within, so without. That is a very, very core root thing. We are not disconnected from nature. We are very impacted by it. And it's important to understand how the cycles are impacting us, how to use the cycles. But like I said in the beginning, we're not just puppets on a string, totally unaware of astrology. We are masters co-creating as conduits between our choice and our intention. And so when we have that space, we're like, okay, let's look to the sky and let's see what's happening. How am I going to work with this energy? How am I going to work with the light and shadow of what's happening on this new moon or full moon or this transit or this solstice? How am I going to work with that intentional timing to bring and use the cycles so that will help me facilitate change, or that will help me facilitate growth, or that will help me facilitate creating or conjuring more wealthy experiences in my life and the life of others? So when you are coming from that, think about that, right? We obviously know new and full moons, that's a great thing. But for me, my favorite thing is to do a 4-part series that I'm going to share with you guys before we end here. So the last thing that I always like to say with ritual to make it really powerful, you could do those 2 first things and that is enough, right? Then the last piece I always like to say is your correspondence. So with ritual, we come from something that I have studied for a long time, and where had I known this existed, years ago when I started my little baby journey of, astrology all the way to herbalism, I found something that's called astroherbalism. And it's being able to understand that the root word of plant and planet, they are linked, right? So plants are one of the greatest ways to work with correspondence, right? As above, so below. Plants actually are very clear. When you start studying astroherbalism, you start to understand the energetics of plants, how they work in the body, what systems they work on, how they impact the body. And this is where we start to get into like alchemy, right? So our plants and the types of plants that we're actually using, those will help us propel or release what we are intending. Another way that you can do this is also with crystals or stones. Like there are, they reflect different, energetics that ultimately, when we start looking at astrology, a Mars ruled plant and a Mars ruled stone are going to be different energetics. They're going to start working with the body in a different way. So when you sit down with your ritual, you want these physical correspondence, because what that does is that if you include these energetics that match what's happening in the sky, you have just created a physical anchor, not just with you, but the energy of the plants that you are utilizing. So could you use those plants as a tea? You could use those plants in a bath. You could use those plants rolled into a candle. You could use those plants in whatever, little things that you're creating. There's so many different ways of using that, and just educating and being able to be aware of that, because the moment that we start to work with the energetics of the plants that match the energetics of the sky, that then match our intention, that is a surefire way of being able to carry that intention in a mind, body, spirit. This is a multidimensional way of becoming a conduit. So the 4-part sequence that I really love to do with any form of intention, and you can do this on solstice, you can do this, later on, but with this is I always love to do release work before I intend anything. Because what I've found over the last 7 years of teaching people ritual is that the first thing that's going to pop up, even if we're like, okay, I did my new moon manifestations, like I'm wishing for this thing, I'm calling this thing in, what's the first thing that ever comes up when you're like, cool, I'm going to commit to this goal, I'm going to do the thing, What's the first thing? Your resistance, right? Or it's some chaotic thing that comes in, some fear that comes in. It's a mindset thing. Maybe somebody says something to you. Maybe mom says something to you. Maybe your partner says something to you and you're like, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to do that anymore. And then we walk away, right? So instead of coming from that, ooh, I'm going to get excited. And then, the little like chaos thing comes out of nowhere, internally or externally, let's clear before. So when we work with what I like to call shadow work or subconscious reprogramming, we actually start working with the resistance of why we don't believe that's possible first. So we start to clear that resistance first. And so our resistance actually lives in our experience, right? It is really hard to create a different reality if we are coming from the same experiences that either our parents or we experience in the beginning of our lives or throughout our lives, right? It is incredibly hard to do that because our nervous systems are reprogrammed. Are programmed in a certain way. So if we grew up a certain way, say, for example, mom and dad had a hard, I'm just use my example, mom and dad were always running out of money. We were like, always just like, all the things, just trying to like pay rent on time, all the things, whatever it was, it created a lot of dysfunction in my nervous system every time I went to go try to make money, or the way that I was interacting with money. And it created a lot of chaos. So for me to rewire and come into a space of wealth, I actually had to go back to those experiences and do subconscious reprogramming. I had to go back into the belief that people with money are terrible people, or success is just not for me. That's not for people like me. You always have to grind and hustle all the time, which is not true. So all of these core beliefs, which I also want to say are in our, programming as a society, we have to reframe those. So before you even are like, cool, I want to create all these things, I want you to write down your intention, what wealth you want to conjure for 2025, whatever wealth that is for you, whether that's love, relationships, healing, a healthy body, a healthy mind, however you want to feel, whatever that is, I want you to write that down. And then I want you to see what starts popping up in your head, right? So start writing down the beliefs or the narratives or the things that are coming up, because they will. They're going to be like, that's not possible, They will come like this. They'll come instantly, and then they'll go and they'll go and they'll go and they'll go. So instead of allowing for them to go, I want you to write all of that down, because that's actually what you need to release, all of those beliefs. And I'm not saying it's like a one-time thing. I'm saying, ask yourself, so, if I really put myself, thinking in 6 months from now, and I created everything that I wanted, and I just put myself in that place, like, oh, the love of my life is here, or, I'm making lots of money. See if there's a contraction in your body, right? Put yourself in the tangible result of that desire, and then be able to like think about, like, if you got a business, DMs coming in, lots of people putting orders in, or if you're calling in like health or healing or whatever it is, put yourself in that actual thing, get yourself grounded, just like we did in the beginning of this beautiful conversation. And, you know, come from that space and ask yourself, am I holding resistance to this? Because first it'll show up in the mind, but we want to trace it back in the body. And then when you come into the place of, am I holding resistance in the belly? Am I holding resistance in my heart? Am I holding wherever that is? And maybe placing a hand over that and saying, where did I learn this resistance? Like, if this resistance was telling me a story or a belief, what would it be? And where did I first experience it? And so whatever, just moving back as much as you can, feeling, seeing, knowing, and allowing for yourself to release that first. The second ritual that you're going to want to do is fully go into the desire once that's all released, right? So this could be the next day, it could be the next step. You're going to want to fully go into the trajectory. This is something that I just taught in a container. It's called You Were Made for This if you have interest in it. But ultimately, that next ritual you want to do is going to be something that is very fire-based. So our first ritual is water-based. It's releasing. The second one is fire-based. So it's activating. And then we're going to come into the third ritual, which is going to be an earth-based ritual. These are all the elements that are reflected throughout astrology as well. And so when we have that earth-based ritual, we actually ground into the actual correspondence of what is the thing that I need to do to take that action now and to create it now. So what is the first step that I need to do? So this is another thing that a lot of people forget with ritual work is like, yes, it's going to come, but you have to be the one to open the door, right? So if we want that money, do I need to start a side hustle? What is something that I've been thinking about, right? What is that first step that I can take? That is going to be in your third ritual. How can I start building this now? And then the fourth ritual is about communicating it, right? You can either communicate it through the universe, you can communicate it through somebody else, you can communicate it with the world by sharing it, whatever that is. And so when we want to, the last ritual, you can either do releasing limiting beliefs, or you can share it. Say you have a business, or you want to put it out there, or you want to speak it to a friend, or you speak it to a colleague, whatever it is, communicate it, because ultimately that is going to help facilitate its growth as well. So that's basically a very foundational way of creating your wealthiest year. Sorry, I just like went for it this whole time. I was like, let's get in as much conversation as we can, but I know that you might have some questions, so I'll leave that open.
No, thank you, Camille. You cover so much ground. Wow. I'm not expert on astrology by any stretch, and so I did my birth chart and try to get a handle on it, but still light years behind where you're at. If you guys have any questions, this is a time to raise your hand, pop your questions in the chat.
I know it's a lot of information.
Okay. So it looks like Sean has a question.
Awesome.
Let's see here.
Hello, I just wanted to say thank you so much. It was very educational, and I think we needed every word of that. So no apologies necessary. I wanted to mirror what I missed his name. What he asked about the list was like the first was releasing, second was activating. What was the third one?
Yeah, the third one is an earth ritual. So typically in ritual, this would be more like a money manifestation ritual. You can look up money herbs, stuff like that. But with that ritual, the biggest thing is that you're going to want to take action, right? So at least one step. For example, say I just taught this course, so I'm just using this example. For example, if somebody wanted to start a business, you're going to make your social media platform, right? Or something like that. Whatever it is, that first step, tangible step that you can do to just open the door and kind of show yourself, your subconscious, the universe, that you're serious about creating this result in your life. So for example, if we wanted to get healthier, I would go out, or maybe I would go join a gym or join a class or set myself up with that space. So by this time, we have already released our resistance, we've activated, and then in this third ritual, it's more of an earth-based ritual. So action, something that we can physically create right now. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. And
Yeah.
I guess the last thing is before we send off, or maybe Noah can do this, is how to connect with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can come, I don't know if you have Instagram, but that's where my main platform is. It's at vital, VITAL .mystic. And that's where I am. That I'll be creating. I give lots of information about, different things to do under thank you, Josh. Under different astrology, I'll be giving tons of information just like this. And, I also specifically do a lot for people to create and call in more opportunity and wealth, whether you have a business or not. Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean. Looks like Mila also has her hand up.
Thank you, Camila. My name is also, but it's Camila. And so Mila, I noticed you said your North Node's in Gemini. My North Node's in Aries, and my midheaven is in Gemini. I was also very shy. So something like you said, you mentioned something about if something's inside you, it's gonna come out. Well, that prompted me to move in the unknown. So I started a channel. I started offering readings, things like that. So the upcoming shift of the nodal axis to Virgo and Pisces, what do you think might happen? I guess. I guess that's kind of the question. I'm really because that's going to be my first house, and Pluto's in my first house, and Aquarius is my sun. So I've got a lot of stuff going on. I know it's happening. I'm just really listening into that intuition, and hearing what you said about Pisces is very important. But I'll wait to hear from you. Thank you.
Yeah. Great question. So, I'm going to give overall general, and then you said Pisces was in your first house. Is that correct?
No, I'm a Virgo rising.
Virgo rising. Okay. So it would be your seventh, right? Yeah.
Pisces is my seventh. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. So with that said, so overall, I mean, these are just my own personal predictions, but when we have a North Node in Pisces, I think a lot of people are going to be awakening spiritually. That's what I think. I think might be a polarity. Obviously with all astrology, there's going to be dark and light. But in the highest form of North Node in Pisces, tons of people are going to be opening up spiritually and kind of needing to, right? We definitely kind of need that right now. But ultimately opening up to their spiritual gifts, opening up to their creativity, opening up that there are different ways of creating wealth, opening up to that, life is not just this life. There are multiple dimensions and realities, and that there is an eternal sense, because Pisces in astrology rules the 12th house. And it also rules this, it's like the end of the wheel. So it's the thing that it's a sign. That's why so many people who have strong Pisces placements are very intuitive, and they're very connected to spirit, and they're very psychic, is because Pisces is the closest to the spiritual realm. And so when we're thinking about that, we want to think about, okay, a lot of people are going to be opening up with that, but also what is the other side of that, right? Maybe addictions, maybe, the subconscious, needing to heal the subconscious, right? Needing to go back into those realms, because Pisces also rules the psyche. If you know astrology, 12th house is about, your subconscious. It's about the things that are hidden from you, right? So I would say that's probably where a lot of what's going to be happening over the next 2 years. And then South Node in Virgo, we want to be aware of that as well. South Node in Virgo helps us release the way that we think that we need to be in order to create success. It also, when we think about the shadow of Virgo is control and perfectionism, and needing to have to know every little thing, every little detail, and also coming into a space of trust. So that, North Node lead is going to help us open up and trust. South Node Virgo says it's okay to let go of the way that you thought you needed to be. But also we want to understand that these energies balance. So for us to actually move more into the light of the North Node in Pisces, we actually need to balance and kind of alchemize the shadow of Virgo, which is perfectionism and control, right? Or control of others. That's another thing. So when we come into that, Virgo also represents the healer. And so when we think about Virgo, it's about, Earth, and then it also rules the sixth house, which is our systems, right? So this need to develop systems that encompass everybody, right? That help everybody kind of come in, and that support base as well. So that's probably something else that we're going to see. Because you have a Virgo rising and it's on that axis, I would say, for you is really, really trusting your intuition, allowing for obviously that's for everybody, but because Pisces is in your seventh house, it's going to bring up relationships, and the way that we relate with the world is actually how we're going to create more, right? So when we come into that, your rising, your first house, your seventh house, that's ascendant, descendant. And so ascendant is, okay, how I'm being asked to show up in the world and share my unique perspectives and the things that I've shared, and then also being able to catalyze new ways of relating with that. So new ways of relating with our gifts, or new ways of relating with each other, or, what relationships are like overall. How can we bring that spiritual essence into relating, right? Because I don't know about everyone else, but I had a very unhealthy example of what relationships are supposed to look like. So with that, I would kind of think about those themes as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Camille. Looks like we have maybe time for one last question.
Awesome.
Natasha has her hand up. You can either type it, there you are.
Yeah, I was starting to type because someone asked me to type it, but just really quick. Hi, thank you. I apologize if you've already stated this because I joined late, but it was important to me as far as when you talked about ritual. My ancestors have passed, so a lot of what I'm doing is coming from like this innate knowing, like tapping in, and kind of so those who, I'm a student, however, like looking for those signs, or you mentioned something about, it sounded like a chant, and I don't know if you mentioned it earlier, but it was, do you mind repeating it for me? I apologize. It was like above, below, do you know?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is great. So I just wanted to say, like, my family comes from the Ottawa tribe up in Michigan. And then also I have like Native Mexican ancestors. And I just want to say, like, me tapping into everything that I've created was completely channeled. I had some mentors here and there for sure, but I just want to encourage you to keep tapping into that, because that's ultimately going to be your power place. And that's why I always say it's like, trust that, but what I said before was as within, so without, as above, so below. And this is kind of an alchemical term. When we, back before, all these things were erased, we had knowledge and we used astrology to create actual physical products. And if you go and move into ritual, these are some things that I've created, have taught about, but how to create actual products. So candles or oils or things like that, to with different herbs to activate underneath certain astrological transits, and that will help embody the energy. So it's an alchemical term that is as within, so without, as above, so below. And what it means is that our internal world really directs our external, and anything that is external in our world is actually from an internal space. So when we're thinking about ritual, we can truly, and this is the root core of ritual, the more clear that we are on the inside, the more that we are doing that release work and really kind of coming into that space of that beautiful fire that we're building, the more that we actually conjure from that space of, I know that I am worthy, and I'm also knowing that I'm powerful enough to create a vortex or a different reality. So, and then the as above, so below is looking at the different cycles. Remember, we're not puppets, so we're looking at the different cycles we're aware of them, and then we watch, you know, how that impacts below. But instead of just like, oh, this is how I'm affected by astrology and this is just the way that I am, we're actually saying, no, 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 there's a solstice coming up. It's a double, you know, it's a double earth. So I'm going to actually do some money rituals on this day. And I'm going to call in that wealth and success. And I'm going to time it correctly, because once again, working with those astrological transits will help us move with those trajectories even quicker and stronger as well. So yeah, I hope that was, yeah.
Thank you so much, Camille.
Yeah,
Well,
thank
we're
you.
at
This
the
is,
top of the hour. We're so lucky. I mean, oh my God, I'm going to have to rewatch this maybe once or twice. You cover so much ground, and I'm a little bit on left field trying to play catch up with everything that you're talking about in terms of the placement of the planets and the astrological signs and what have you. At one point, I was going to dive into it, and it just never happened. I went in a totally different direction, but I so appreciate it. There's so much wealth here. Now, if you could just recap today's discussion about building ritual to create success in 2025, what would be just the gist to leave something to plant that seed for all of us?
yeah, I would say if you could, you know, doing more, you know, doing any ritual, however you do it, is going to be better than none at all. And, you know, you setting your time and intentions, a very easy way to start is with new and full moons. That is a very easy way to start. And if you can, even if you're like, I only got, you know, so much time, maybe it's just once a month around the new moon, and it's a dark moon, new moon, and then the next waxing moon. That's a really good ritual series too. And to just remember, define what wealth means to you. And that's going to be the way that you conjure and create and call that into your personal vortex for your wealthiest year in 2025. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Camille. I'd
Yeah.
like to invite everyone to close out our talk with just a very short meditation to get us grounded, to get us in a state of just feeling really good, because that's really the intent of healing conversations, to come in with whatever it is that we're carrying, to come in with new perspective, and to leave behind what no longer serves us, because now we have this new empowering perspective. So invite you to close your eyes if you're in a safe space. If you're driving, obviously do not close your eyes. And invite you to take one deep breath with me. And as you're taking this deep breath, imagine that you're breathing in your suffering, all suffering. Now hold it. Now let go of the breath and slowly breathe out. Loving kindness to yourself, loving kindness to your family, your friends, loving kindness to everyone in the world. I invite you to open your eyes. So thankful for Camille, so thankful for everyone here. Again, if you need to reach out to Camille, she is on Instagram. Remind us once again, at vital.mystic, right?
Yeah, at vital.mystic. You can find me there. You can also find me at vitalmystic.com. Yeah.
Awesome. So thank you again, everyone. Until next Wednesday, we'll have another exciting guest speaker. Appreciate y'all. Love you guys. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Everybody, thank you.
Ciao.